All right. Welcome. We are so excited to continue our series of webinars for our membership and for others who are interested in joining and learning more about the Emerald Coast Medical Association and all of our incredible preferred partners and the information and the data, the content that they have to share with us is exciting. This topic is very important. I think it's more important than our physician members realize, and I think many are perhaps unaware of everything that is out about them digitally. And sometimes complaints, kudos, all of it is important to be aware of. And luckily, we have a preferred partner with Chris Jostin and Curiosity Marketing that can not only educate us, but offer us solutions. So, with that, I am going to turn it over to Chris.
Thanks, Michelle. So thank you all for either joining us here during the recording or watching after the fact. And to Michelle's point, we've been really focusing on the what we call digital bedside manner for some time now. A number of years has become very important. And so today, what my goal is to kind of walk through kind of some of the things we see, some of the things we focus on, the recommendations that every practice hospital, business in general should be paying attention to, and also some ways to approach it. So, on that note, a little bit about myself. So, about close to 30 years of experience in marketing, whether it's been from small businesses to large businesses. 9 years, I believe it is, that we've been partners with Emerald Coast Medical Association, if not, maybe even longer. And medicine is dear to my heart. I grew up a physician's son, so I've kind of seen the ins and outs of it, and just continue to focus there. We focus heavily on the digital side of marketing, uh, mainly from web development to social media to paid online advertising, and of course, reputation management and PR. So, kind of backing up to why reputation and why your online reputation matters. And at this point, statistics state that 77% of patients use online reviews as their first step when choosing a new provider. So, your first line of defense is not your website. It's not your office and your office staff. It's when someone Googles, I need a family practice physician, what pops up and what the grading is for those physicians, or even when they Google your name, that is going to help uh, determine their decision before you're even spoken to. So it's extremely important that it's an understanding that the online reputation is essentially modern word of mouth. They influence trust, they influence decision making, and if you don't have good online reviews, essentially your reputation is already at fault. So, in terms of where patients are starting now, if it's not a referral from another physician, and even if it is another referral from a physician, most cases a patient is then going to go to the internet to then research their next step. And some of these journey touch points include Google search, uh, Google Maps, health grades. Yelp is huge for medical, social media, and then finally your website. And it's kind of in that journey. Your website is not the first line of defense anymore. Google has made it a priority. Uh, Yahoo and all the other Bing, etc., have done the same thing. They've stacked the top of your search results now with more information on uh, Google Maps links and reviews and ads. So your website in most cases for a lot of businesses now is buried halfway down the page. And you don't necessarily have the control that you on with just using your website as you used to have. So in this case too, what patients are looking for: positive reviews and star ratings, professional responses to negative feedback. We'll get into that in a little bit. It's extremely important that the reviews are not just left alone. Accurate information, hours, address, services, and it's not just on one listing, but you're across all forms of your website, Google, Bing, Health Grades, Yelp. others call it Hot Frog, and some of these others, they are extremely important that the information is consistent and matches across all platforms. Um, the other side of it too, which has become very important, is adding photos to these listings. So photos of providers, biographies, there's even rooms to put descriptions now, service offerings, all of that needs to be included across your website as well as your your listings. And we kind of refer this to your digital DNA, or in this case, the reputation management side is your digital bedside manner. That's kind of the terms that we've coined over the years. So kind of building on the listing accuracy, 68% of patients say they would stop using a healthcare provider if they found incorrect or inconsistent information online. You have about 3 to 5 seconds to capture someone's attention now when they do a Google search. If they find the provider's name, they click the website and it's not an active link. If they click the phone number, it doesn't go through, you've lost them. That accuracy immediately is flagged as a sign of distrust or not paying attention to the patient's needs. And a lot of times you'll lose that patient's attention. Uh, in order to do this, what we enact and use is a series of systems. For ours, we've partnered with a platform called Birdeye. What that does is it allows us to manage the listings across about 200 different directories in one central location. With that, we also are monitoring reviews on a daily basis, and we'll get to those review sections and what to do there in a little bit. But finding a tool, whether it's Birdeye, there's others called Yext, MozLocal's another one that's inexpensive, or good old-fashioned spreadsheet, if you wanted to start there, is extremely important. So how do you go about beginning to control this information? And the first thing you have to do is you have to own your profiles. When your practice started, if you didn't start the profile yourself, Google, Apple Maps, etc., probably started it for you with the information that they feel or think is the proper information. It's a scrape of their own information. It's a scrape of websites and other image searches that they have the ability to use. And what they do to gain the search impressions, they generate a lot of listings on their own. So in order to control the narrative, for lack of better terms, you want to own those listings. So there's a series of steps. If you do not own your listings, you can search yourself in Google and it'll say claim this listing as part. If you own it, click that button, and then there's a series of steps where you can verify that you have the ownership of that listing, and it's very important that you have that access. Once you have access to it, the optimization becomes making sure the information is correct. Add some welcoming bios, make sure your service offerings are there. If you're running a medical spa or anything like that, FAQs are huge. What do I need to bring? Especially for surgeons too. How long do I have to fast? Any of this information is great information to add to these listings to help build the awareness and trust of what you offer, and also make sure the patients are comfortable. In the case of reviews, every directory location, every directory listing is now accepting reviews. Even your Facebook business profile technically can have reviews. It is extremely important to monitor and answer as many of these as possible. With the way we handle it is we automate a lot of this review process. With Birdeye and the integrations we have, what we do is we basically say anything 4 and 5 stars considered a great review. So what we do is we write a series of responses that are then built into Birdeye's AI system to personalize and directly reply back to the review under very strict terms. Anything 3-star and below, we recommend that you set up notifications so you're immediately notified that the review has come through. Um, and then from there, we want to make sure that it is responded to. Positive reviews are easy, right? Positive, you get a positive response. It's extremely easy to answer. It's extremely easy to say thank you for the review. We're glad you had a great experience and move on from there. Neutral reviews, let's say a patient comes in and they had to wait a long time for their appointment, but they still enjoyed their service, so they may give you a 3-star review. Those are pretty straightforward as well. You can probably respond back with something that says, "We're sorry you had the inconvenience. We'd love to talk to you about your next appointment. Please call the office." The fun ones are when we get into the negative reviews. In a lot of cases, we come in as a partner to help write the reviews because we're disconnected. We are taking it at the surface value. We're responding based on without the emotion, but still showing the empathy. So we usually tell practices is we understand that the patient may not be correct, and this is, we want to hear your side of the story too. So tell us what happened. We then take both sides of the story, uh, create a non-political stance, I guess, for response, and then we post it from there. Few things to always remember. One, you never want to let a negative review sit more than 24 hours. If it sits that long, you essentially, sometimes you forget about it. Sometimes the patient will come back and then send another negative review, so you don't want to let it sit. In this case, too, we also want to make sure that we are not violating anything HIPAA compliance wise, and we don't want to come across defensive. And as always, too, any bad experience, whether it's true or not, we don't want the patients to see the issue. So in this case, we always recommend showing some empathy and invite them to contact the office. So a lot of times the responses may be very vague, like the sample one I have here. Thank you for your feedback. We strive to provide a positive experience for all our patients. Please contact our office directly so we can address your concerns. Sometimes that's enough. Now, there's also the case where negative reviews are completely false. We've run across this multiple times with multiple physicians, and unfortunately, Google health grades, they are very, I don't want to say abstinent, but they do not want to remove any reviews, period. If it's a negative review, you can put a request in, but it's very rare that they will come back and say, this is a hostile review, this is an effect, this is a uh, direct attack, and they'll remove the review. So it's very important that you are making sure you respond at the very least. We have had a few that do get removed, and that's usually due to harassment or defamation where it gets to be too extreme. But even that, I've been doing this since Google, basically since Google started the review system, and we've probably only seen a handful of reviews removed. So even with getting attorneys involved, it's not the easiest process. So we always want to build trust through transparency when we're also responding to reviews. It's big to note that mistakes happen. Transparency and accepting that a mistake happened is a very big component of building trust. So in this case, if there was a negative review, long wait times, communication issues, admit it. It's okay to admit we're sorry. Our surgeon got stuck in a surgery that was more complex than we expected, and it pushed our appointments back. That's okay to state that. Just demonstrate your commitment to service improvement. Ask them to call and adjust it that way. But the honesty goes a long way. And a lot of times it's hard to accept that something did happen because everyone wants to run a perfect practice and everyone wants to run on time. But I think we all know that that's not the case on a day-to-day basis. So it's okay to be transparent. It's okay to be uh, open that there was an actual mistake and just own it. Now, how do reviews can be leveraged in so many different ways for growth. And in this case, too, we found a statistic that 43% of patients would consider switching providers based on negative reviews. So if there's negative reviews showing on your system, on your accounts without responses, you're probably losing patients. And not, I would say about 8 out of 10 physicians that we begin work with don't know that there's negative reviews out there on some of these platforms that have had no response, or maybe sometimes even been there for a few years that have not been touched. So it's very important that you nip that. But then on the positive side, look at ways to leverage these in different manners. Um, One, we always want to make sure that we're getting enough positive reviews to outweigh negative. Usually it takes about 5 to 6 positive reviews to offset one negative. So you can imagine the amount of uh, positive reviews you would have to have if you had a couple negative ones hit your account. So what we always do then is look at ways to generate a connection to patients in the moment when they've had that positive experience. One of those would be at a checkout process. So if the patient has had a positive experience, there's a few different ways to do this. One, we have what we like to call tap cards. Don't I'll get an example and show them some pictures of it. But basically, it's a card. Actually, got one right here that looks like this. If my camera pick it up. And what this was one I actually keep this one in my wallet for reviews. But what we do is we program these. In each of these cards, there's a little RFID chip. That RFID chip is programmed so as any mobile device gets close to it, it triggers your phone to link to your Google reviews, and it immediately props it up. And all the patient has to do is tap 4 or 5 stars, type in a quick message, submit, and they're done. It's a great. We've seen it work with a number of practices in the waiting room. If they've been checked in and say, hey, everything's going good, can you leave us a review? And it's just relying on your staff to kind of help with that step. Secondarily to that, we look at ways and look at the checkout process to see if there's a way post-appointment to send out a text message, an email afterwards, which then has a link to leave a review as well. Athena, Frisia, MedQ, Patient Pop, all of these have the ability to send review requests after the appointment. So if you're not sending review requests after an appointment, talk to your provider, talk to your office manager about possibly integrating that in and go that route. The way we handle it too, if we have directories that are multiple platforms, like we want reviews on Facebook, Health Grades, Google, Bing, Apple Maps. What we then do is we integrate a page, basically a landing page within Birdeye that has the ability to leave the reviews in multiple places. So it just depends on your goals and your business goals for reviews. Google is always the most prominent, and that's where most practices tend to focus first if you needed to focus there or consolidate your efforts. So that's just something to think about. And then after that too, you look at ways to showcase those reviews. It's extremely important that you shout from the rooftops if the patients are having good experiences and look at ways to use those. So one of the ways we always like to do it is integrate a widget within the website of the patient or the physicians. So that's just a little rotating carousel. Once again, with the Birdeye platform, we actually automate it. So basically, we gather all Google reviews, 4 or 5 stars, and as a new one's added, it's added to the rotation on the site, so it's all automated. Do a social media post with a patient of the week. If the patient is open to it and has opted in for you to use their information, uh, focus on a patient. It may sound weird, but social media goes a long way, and it's another way to reach out and show uh, the patients that they're appreciated. And then finally, look at all your print collateral. If you have brochures, if you have not necessarily business cards, but any type of flyers, anything that pertains to your services, copy one or two of those good reviews and just integrate them into the design so that they can, there's a connection. So if a prospective patient sees your flyer, goes to Google and sees the review connection, it helps build that ecosystem. And it's just always good to know that and good to note that positive reviews essentially equals social proof that drives new patient acquisition. It drives that you know what you're doing, patients are comfortable, and overall it's a good environment that they will feel safe coming to. So we mentioned it a little earlier, but let's say you get all of these directories, you get them claimed, you own them. What do you do next? Well, ongoing monitoring and management is exactly that. It's ongoing. There is no, you do it once and you move on. You need to have a system in place for the monitoring, for the access to for easy changes, and also easy responses. So this kind of a system that we recommend. One, look at your tools. So I mentioned a few earlier. I continue to come back to Birdeye. We have a partner with Birdeye. We've used all platforms that are out there. Birdeye EX, Podium, Moz Local. We've been through them all. We continue to come back to Birdeye as the most comprehensive review management and uh, listing management platform. Plus, it's also the leader with the most integrations with directories that have to do with medical. So there's a couple ways to do the monitoring. Look at a platform like Birdeye. If you do not have it set up for your business and your practice in your name, set up Google Alerts. So if you go to Google, if you have a Gmail, set up a Gmail account if you don't have one. And in that window, what you can do is be notified if anyone mentions your name, your business name, even specific terms that have to do with your business. And what it does is if Google senses that with a algorithm update or search update, it'll send you a email stating this is what was said. Here's the link to where it was said. So it's very important that you keep that running as well, or at least someone in your office is managing that. Yext is a competitor of Birdeye and Podium. It's a different option. One thing to be careful with Yext is if you sign up for their program, you build directories on that program, you're stuck with that program or else the directories go away. Uh, a lot of your bigger platforms are integrated into one system. If you stop paying that subscription, the directories go away. Once again, that's the reason why we chose Birdeye. At some point, if you need to discontinue the service there, the directories stay active. They're just not monitored. And then finally, if you only want to focus on social, Hootsuite has a great tool. For social management, we just still continue to run it through the Birdeye system for Facebook and such. However, if you wanted to, you could look at running Hootsuite for that, and that also doubles as a scheduling system. So it's a lot to manage. If you're not hiring a partner like ourselves to help with this, what we recommend doing is assign in your office someone with a task to look at these items weekly, monthly, etc., to make sure that everything is staying up to date. Listing management, office manager, possibly someone that is able to log in and make sure the information is correct, continue to research new directories and gain access to the new ones. If you have an internal marketing team, lean on them from the copywriting perspective for all reviews, have them monitor for the reviews, and then build the responses for approval. And then leadership for review trends is always big. It's very important that leadership gets involved to the point because a lot of times the physician is the front line with the patient directly. And can kind of gauge the climate of, okay, we're seeing a trend of good reviews, or the patients are seem happy. Are we getting the positive reviews? So it's very important to include leadership in this process. With the with the ongoing aspect of this, we always recommend looking at monthly reporting in some sort. And some of the items that you should be looking at is average star rating. What is your average rating across the different directories? The average rating actually plays into, especially on Google and some of the others, it plays into where you're ranked and what is presented to patients. You could be standing, I could be standing in your office, but if you've got a 2-star review, Google will suggest someone down the road that's got a 5-star review as your competitor, for me to go to that office versus yours because of that review rating. And then secondly to that, the review volume. How many reviews do you have? Ideally, the goal is to get your practice to have as many 5-star reviews as possible, with the goal of hitting at least 100 reviews as quickly as possible. If you can get to that point, you start to see some prominence within the rankings. You start to get a little bit additional priority over others, versus the lower review counts. And then look at sentiment trends. Look at the reviews that are coming in. How many positive to negative are there? Do you go a month with no negative reviews? Well, then celebrate it. It's a huge milestone to go a month with no negative reviews. And you just continue to build those trends and set the KPIs, set those indicators of this is our goal, this is where we want to be, and then build to that. So, action plan. The big thing is that you should really keep a focus on is that the online reputation is a huge extension of your practice from a digital perspective. It's what your patients see, it's what new patients see, it's what other physicians and referrals see. If they're not familiar uh, with you, then they're going to look for the reviews that are coming in. If you've just moved here, from you've been practicing in a different area, what did the reviews look like prior to you leaving the practice where you were at? So it's all important. Once you have the platform set up, keep an eye on the reviews, keep an eye on making sure responses are handled quickly. And yet that even if it's a negative one, you want to handle it quickly so that the patient trust continues to get built. And then finally, leverage reviews, leverage the good reviews as much as you can to attract and retain new patients. That's a mix of using it in collateral, using it on social media, saying thank you to the patients that do leave reviews, and go from there. So, first 3 steps. If you were to handle this yourself, 1, audit all of the reviews you can have. So search your name, search your practice name, look at what shows up. Whether it's Google, go to Bing, look at their business listings. If you've got an iPhone, search your practice on Apple Maps, and then look at HealthGrade, ZocDoc, and some of these others to make sure that your information's correct. If it's not correct, you want to first make sure you have access to these directories, claim it, and then also from there, adjust the information on each of the directories so it's consistent. If you're handling the review responses internally, work with your team, your marketing team, your office management to craft some predictable review templates that make it easier for your team to respond quickly. The last thing you want is for that review to go stale and the patient is there's no response, and a new patient comes looking, they see the negative review and go, oh, I'm not going there. And then finally, set up a review to review, or set up a system to monitor reviews, monitor the listings, and set up the Google alerts so that you're currently seeing and requesting feedback on these listings. Because the other side of it is the listings themselves aren't set it and forget it. We're talking about this now, and I can give you a list of everything that has to go into an Apple Maps or Google listing, but Google will change their mind tomorrow. So there's also the juggle of the requirements of the platform and how that changes. So you have to kind of stay on top of that. Questions?
Well, Chris, I'm going to be honest,
Yeah.
listening to this, and I thought, you and I talk a lot, and, I feel like this is stuff I'm trying to stay on top of. And I guess my impression is I would be surprised if very many of our physicians are fully aware
Hmm.
of even how to approach this.
Hmm.
And I agree with you. I think it's a big issue. It's interesting to me because I will still at this office have patients show up thinking that we are a physician's office.
Hmm.
And sometimes they show up just asking, we were driving by, we saw your sign. Can you help us? We're trying to find a physician that. And sometimes I grab our directory and I have that conversation and I open to that section and I will tell you 90% of the time I will sometimes get pushback like, well, we did a little bit of a review online and this person, I don't think we would want to go there. And they will actually start to share the negative feedback with me.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean,
Yeah.
so it is definitely what people are doing. I'm happy because we work with you. We definitely still show up, whether it's on a map or, a Google search. We're not at the top like we were during the hurricane,
Right.
but that was a very unique time and we were really needed, during Hurricane Michael, post Hurricane Michael to be at the top ahead of the physicians so that we could, help them. The permanently closed that shows up on Google is still an issue for some
It is.
physicians.
Absolutely. And what we've seen is if those listings are left abandoned for a period of time, the latest algorithm changes are just closing businesses.
Oh, wow.
If there's no response, or if there's no changes, this is about a month ago. They made an announcement that they were about to go through and do basically a big listing overhaul,
Hmm.
and it was basically a comparison to uh, if you had a shelf full of DVDs and you had your top DVDs, kind of the top 100 in order,
Hmm.
that your taste would change, your requirements would change over time. And so what they did is basically said, well, now we're just going to do a big shuffle of our favorites. And we saw
Wow.
even a couple of our clients had issues. They didn't get listed as permanently closed, but we did have some issues of having to reconfirm that the business was actually a legit business and do recorded
Mm.
walkthroughs of this is how you walk into our office and here's the sign on the door and this is a legit medical practice. And we're seeing that happen more and more because a lot of these listings just go untouched with no reviews, and then some of them are negative that they just shut them down. Um,
Wow.
it is a challenge.
It's a big challenge. And of course, I always worry about my, physician members in a small practice without a great deal of staff and definitely no, marketing support. Not to hold you to anything, but like how expensive is some of
Yeah.
this
So
to set
actually,
up?
so put this together here. This is essentially a package. This is basically everything that we discussed. So it would be putting the businesses into Birdeye,
Mhm.
linking in the directories and setting up the Google listings, creating the automation of the 4 and 5 star reviews, writing the responses, the monthly review monitoring. So what we would do there is our team would monitor for reviews. If anything 3 stars or less come in, we would set a dedicated person at the office to have a conversation with to get the information on. We would then write the review responses, curate it, get approval to post it, and then we would handle the posting of it. And then, of course, the ongoing directory management. If you were to go to Bird Eye right now and sign up, their listing and review management is about $375 a month, and they require you to sign a 12-month contract. Um, we have negotiated and worked with Bird Eye now for about 4 years ongoing. So I've been able to negotiate some discounts on those listings and be able to do a month-to-month special with them, just because of the partnership we have. So This 750 a month is includes everything, including the bird eye license, to manage that for a practice. So um, that's including a discount for ECMA members. If someone was to come to us
Okay.
just without the membership, it's about $1,200 a month just for this. So
Okay.
um, yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
this is one of those costs of doing business that I just always like to tell our members when you
mhm,
don't do this, the cost of what you're losing is so much higher than you'll ever understand.
correct. Yeah, and it's becoming more important every day. The reviews are and the listing information is really, especially on mobile devices, has become critical to making sure that you're being seen above competition. Um, we've talked with even some practices that have realized that uh, patients aren't seeing their services and are ending up in Pensacola, Tallahassee because they
Hmm.
can't find the information and there's not a good listing of that information out there. And the other side of this is the website optimization piece, which we could have an entire another series of just the optimization of what needs to happen there to be found. But this is always the first line of defense that we recommend because it's built into the search engines. It's reliant and really too, as of a couple weeks ago, and latest updates in AI, ChatGPT, Proximity, and some of these Perplexity, they're feeding information. You go to ChatGPT now, type in your name, type in your
Yeah.
practice name, type in, surgeons near me and see what it gives you. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to feed off of the best reviewed, the best optimized locations within those searches. So it continues to trickle down as we look at it. And this is kind of like I said, that first line of defense.
Hmm. Okay, a lot of really good information, but and it's a little bit of a reality jolt. I
Hmm.
think I would definitely challenge each of our members to go do that search on yourself because I have done that a few times standing here in the office with patients, and it's eye-opening for
Yeah,
sure.
it is.
So.
And everyone wants to think that they're doing a great job, and 9 times out of 10 you are, but
Mhm. But it
the
doesn't matter if online it looks like you're not.
And
And
and patients, people are more apt, 5 times more likely to leave you a negative review than a positive review.
mhm.
So that's the other item that we have to combat as we work through this is making sure we are getting the positive reviews to offset it too. So,
Yeah, and sometimes I think as physicians and people who work in a medical practice, you don't think that way. You don't think of it as having to promote yourself or your practice or your business because we care for people. They
hmm
should naturally want, to come back and they should understand how much we care. I think it's getting into that mindset of even if you're an employed physician, it doesn't matter that you work through a hospital system or a
no.
large practice. If your individual reviews are not good and you're not willing to kind of put yourself out there and say, you know, please leave me a review, your ranking will go down and patients will go elsewhere. And just like you're saying, Chris, even leaving our community to go elsewhere for care. And that's really a big issue. That makes it harder to recruit in new physicians to our area because that's the first thing they go and look at too. Who would my peers and my colleagues be in that community if I moved there? So
Absolutely.
lots of different touch points of where we could have a series of 6 or 7 probably webinars, even
hmm
longer than this, to go
Yeah,
into why and how it matters. But Chris, I just want to thank you again for sharing so freely and openly all of your expertise and knowledge for our membership and always offering a solution. So
absolutely. Yeah, and my contact information is on the screen. Michelle has my information too. We'd love to work with all of our members, especially on something as critical as this. So feel free to reach out.
awesome. Thank you so much and have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too, Michelle.
Bye.
Bye.